Guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's me, Memoir, and I'm back with another video. And in today's video, we are doing another celebrity brand, and this time we're actually going to do a celebrity book. Woo! I'm so excited. The last celebrity book that we did was Bob the Drag Queen, and that one was more of like a historical fiction type of book. This one is actually a memoir, and today's memoir that we are going to be reviewing is, drum roll please, Matriarch, a memoir by Tina Knowles. I am so excited. I really enjoyed this book, and I'm so glad to review it for you guys. I didn't expect to enjoy this book as much as I did, I'll be honest. So I'm so excited to give you guys this review, and I want to try to make it not too long, but we have a lot of ground to cover today. So first and foremost, who is Tina Knowles? Now, I was going to do the whole according to Wikipedia thing, but she actually has an about the author in the back, so I'm going to read that in the back. Tina Knowles is an American businesswoman, fashion designer, art collector, and activist. She helped guide Destiny's Child, the music group comprised of Beyonce Knowles, Kelly Rowland, and Michelle Williams, to global commercial success. With her daughter Beyonce, she co-founded and ran the House of Darion, a clothing line named for her mother, later adding the Miss Tina line, which revolutionized size inclusivity. In 2024, she helped create Sacred, Beyonce's hair care line. Her philanthropic portfolio includes the nonprofit performing arts organization Waco Theater Center, the Knowles Rowland Center for Youth in Houston, and Tina's Angels, her thriving mentoring program for at-risk youth in South Central Los Angeles. She serves as chairwoman of Be Good, a nonprofit dedicated to establishing economic equity through a wide array of initiatives. Tina Knowles is a grandmother of 6 and a matriarch to many. I know Miss Tina from being Beyonce and Solange's mother and Rumi Sir, Blue and Jules' grandma. Now, what is Matriarch, the memoir? I'm also going to read that out of this front, but I'm going to condense it a little bit because it is a little bit long. So I'm just going to read, a couple sentences out of there. Matriarch begins with a precocious, if unruly, little girl growing up in 1950s Galveston, the youngest of 7. She is in love with her world, with extended family on every other porch, and the sounds of Motown and the lapping beach always within earshot. But as the realities of race and limitations of girlhood set in, she begins to dream of a more grandiose existence. Her instincts and impulsive nature drive her far beyond the shores of Texas to discover the life awaiting her on the other side of childhood. But that's pretty much what it's about. It's about her life story, her life journey. And it basically chronicles from when she was 5 years old up until 2024 is when it stops. The order process, I don't really have a order process experience. I actually won this book at a white elephant gift exchange at a Christmas party. So that's how I got it. I didn't have to pay anything for it, but I do see it on different websites, new and used, from around $5 to $25. So you can get it on the cheap end used, or you can get it brand new for around $25. So just so you know, but as far as order timeline and all that stuff, I have no thoughts on that because I actually was gifted this book. Details of the book. The length is 407 pages. It's 398 without the acknowledgments. It has 53 chapters plus a finale section. The release date was April 22nd, 2025. And the book is split into 3 acts. Kind of like Beyonce's little act thing she got going on right now, but I guess Miss Tina did it first because it is split into 3 acts. So what I thought, so there's so much crammed into this book that, or I don't want to say cram because cram sounds negative, but there's so much substance to this book that I was like, how do I give you a review without completely spoiling it? So I picked a couple standout parts that I really wanted to talk about in this video. And this is where I was saying, like, I hope this doesn't get too long because I picked, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I picked 9 standout parts for me, but this book is full of stuff. Like, I can't even when I give you these 9 standout parts, it really doesn't even scratch the surface. So if you're interested after I give you these standouts, I definitely suggest you just order the book because I'm not going to get into every single detail of the book. It's quite a thick book, right? But I will get into just some of the standout parts that I saw in the book. So the first standout part that I put down is the racism in her upbringing. So Miss Tina is the same age as my grandmother. They were born the same year. She was born in January and my grandmother was born in July. So I knew that like racism existed in their upbringing. They were both born in 1954. But this book showcases the many encounters that not only Miss Tina, but her family had with racism. So at one point in the book, she talks about how her family was really from a place called Weeks Island, Louisiana, but they had to move to Galveston because her father, I believe, yes, her father was in a coal mining accident, and they basically ran them out of town when they saw him talking to a union, and they lit their house on fire, and they basically had to run out of town and move to Galveston, Texas. And that's how she was born, in Galveston, Texas. Also, so Miss Tina's parents are a lot older. Like, they had her a little bit later in life. So she's, like she said, she's the youngest of, I think, 7 kids. So a lot of her siblings, there was like over a decade gap in between them. A lot of them dealt with even more racism in their childhood than what she even dealt with. But she talks about how living in Galveston, there was like a separate part of the beach that they could be on and a part that they couldn't be on. Like, the beaches were segregated, how everything was segregated. They had a black high school and a white high school, which low key, even today, sorry to have this caveat, but I read the 1619 Project, and it kind of brought this to life for me, that even today, a lot of high schools are still segregated. They're not like formally segregated, but there are high schools that are mostly like over 90% black, and high schools that are over 90% white, just depending on the neighborhood that you live in. So anyways, that's whatever it is. We talked about a situation where her brother had a run-in with the police when he was in high school, and from then on, for like the next, like, about like 20 years or so, I think, the police would like harass her family. Like, the police, one, they beat him. So the situation that happened was, he got drunk at a party. The taxi dropped him off at the wrong house, but they dropped him off at the house of somebody he knew. But her family is really fair skinned, because of, they have, it's a long story. You got to read that part of the book. But basically, one of her like great grandparents was a slave owner. He was very fair skinned, so he went on this. They dropped him off at the wrong house. He sits on this lady's porch. The porch is somebody that he knows, but she doesn't recognize him. So she thinks there's just a drunk white man on her porch. So she calls the police. The police pull up, and they notice that he's not white. He's a black man. And so when they finally like get him kind of awake, and she sees his face, she's like, no, I don't want y'all to hurt him. I actually know him. I just didn't recognize him. But of course, they weren't taking her word for it. They took him, they beat him up, they took him down to the police station. It was a whole thing. They really thought that he was going to die that night, because that was just a thing they would do back then. It's just like arrest black people and kill them and say, oh, they were resisting arrest. I had to do what I had to do, which it don't sound too different from today. Now do it. So after that incident, there was her father was constantly getting pulled over in traffic stops. She got detained, I believe, twice herself. So there was a lot of themes of like race and identity. And I feel like that was an important thing to mention, because a lot of people, in particular, when it comes to Beyonce, for some reason, people try to act like her pro-blackness is like fake, and it's like she's doing it for money. But when you read this book and you hear about her mother's upbringing and how she was so radically black, and even in some of these run-ins with police, she was still maintaining her identity as a black person, and radically black. So of course she passed those values on to her children. You know what I mean? That was one of the big standout parts to me. Another one was how she met Matthew. When she starts to get into her journey with Matthew, that was probably one of the most interesting parts of the story to me. I believe the chapter is called The Persistence of Fate. And basically what happened was, she was kind of living her life or whatever. And then I believe she moved to Houston, and she was dating a guy back in Galveston, and that guy took her to a party in Houston. And at the time when he took her to the party, they weren't dating, but he was telling everybody that they were, but they weren't dating. So this party actually happened to be at Matthew Knowles' house. And so she was like, when she first met him, she did not really like him at all. And he asked her like where she worked or whatever, and she told him she worked at a bank. I can't remember the bank name, but she told him she worked at a bank. She named the name of the bank, and he was like, okay, cool. And they didn't see each other for a while. He ended up going to the wrong bank to try to find her. Then somehow he ends up at the right bank, but he ends up there when it's like almost her last day of work there, because she's about to move back to Galveston. I can't remember exactly why she was about to move back. She saw him that day and she's like, I still don't like this guy, whatever. And then I think she said she saw him again, like in the same day or the same weekend, walking in like a downtown area of Houston. And so she's like, every time she sees something twice, she feels like it's God speaking to her. So anyway, she ends up inviting him, I think, to she's selling all her stuff that she had, all her furniture and stuff, because she's about to move. So she couldn't take it all with her. So she's selling her stuff. And he comes to that and they talk. And then he's trying to get her to go on a date. And she's like, listen, if you want to go on a date with me, you need to, the only way we can spend time together is if you drive me back to Galveston tonight, because she had to go to something at her church or something. And Galveston to Houston, it's like a hour drive or so. He did. He drove her there. He met all her family that night. This was like their first date. And then from then on, they drove back that night. A situation happened with her roommate's boyfriend, and she didn't feel safe staying there. So she called him and she stayed at his place. And from then on, they were pretty much, you couldn't separate them. What is the word? Inseparable? Is that the word? They were pretty much inseparable. You couldn't separate them. And that is how we get Matthew and Tina Knowles. And of course, you know, Beyonce, Solange, Jules, Blue, Sir, Rumi, so on and so forth. So I feel like that was a really interesting chapter. Obviously, I kind of gave you all the details, but not really. I glazed over some stuff. So I would say that was one of my favorite sections of the book, because even though their marriage, spoiler alert, did not work out, I mean, look at what they created together. Like, you can't say that that was not a divine union in some type of way. Another thing I felt was a standout part was when she talked about the death of her parents, particularly the death of her mother. Like I said, she was the youngest of seven, so her parents were pretty old, even when she was young. So I think her mom was like maybe in her 70s or 80s when Tina was like in her 20s. Shortly after she met Matthew and married Matthew, her mother ended up passing away. And after her mother passed away is when she found out that she was pregnant with Beyonce. So her mother didn't get to meet Beyonce. Beyonce didn't get to meet her mother because her mother passed away before she became a mother. And her father, I believe, passed away shortly after Beyonce was born. I'm pretty sure it was before Solange was born. I think it was after Beyonce was born as well. So that was a pretty interesting part to me. Oh, her dad couldn't even show up to her wedding to Matthew because he ended up having, I believe, like a mild heart attack or something the day before the wedding, and he couldn't even come to it. So she kind of talks about how like her mother was often sick when she was coming up, and how she kind of fell into the role of taking care of her parents when she was younger, and she took care of them until the end, being in her own girl group. So this dials back, this is before she met Matthew, but when she was in, I believe, middle school and high school, she actually was in her own girl group, and I believe it was called, let me find, there's a whole chapter named after it. I believe it was called the Bell Tones. Yes, the Bell Tones. So she was in her own little girl group. So this was like the precursor to Destiny's Child. But she also talks about how her parents, they just kind of didn't believe in the entertainment industry and stuff like that. And honestly, that's how, if you Black and you be around older Black people, you know that's how they be. They're very practical. They don't really believe in like stepping outside of the box and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but she was in her own girl group. I found that very, very interesting. And they used to do performances and everything, but there kept being like problems with the group dynamic, like people were dropping out and stuff like that. So the group ended up disbanding, and she didn't get to follow that dream. She did, however, I didn't put this on the standout part, but she did, however, end up following other dreams later on. So this book was very inspiring when it comes to like following your dreams, just doing it, not thinking twice, just going for it. Like at one point she moved to, I believe it was San Francisco. I might be wrong. But it was somewhere in California, and somebody was like, I'm going there tomorrow, and she just went. Like, also thought another standout part was the rags to riches of it all. So she's very transparent in the fact that she grew up poor. Her family didn't have a lot. They may do what they have, but they didn't have a lot. When she met Matthew he worked for Xerox, I think in sales, and he was making good money for the 80s. Like, I believe in one part of the book, she's like, he was making like six figures. In the 80s, six figures, I mean, six figures is a lot of money to me still now, but six figures in the 80s, that was like a lot of money. So by the time she had kids, her kids did not grow up poor. Like Beyonce and Solange did not grow up poor by any means. She ended up, I didn't write this down, but she ended up getting some investment money from Matthew to open her own hair salon, and her hair salon was very, very successful. At one point she was the breadwinner. So, but I mean, Matthew was still making a lot of money, so both of them are making a lot of money. They were a very successful like household. So I do believe like a lot of Beyonce and Solange's success is obviously from just raw talent, hard work, and dedication, but also, I mean, they didn't come from the poorest of means like Tina did. Tina came from very, very, humble beginnings, and then, went from rags to riches, married a man that had a lot of money, and then made money on her own and became the breadwinner in her own right. So, period, Miss Tina. Another part that stood out to me, I was just listening to Renaissance. Renaissance was released on the anniversary of Uncle Johnny's death. So Uncle Johnny died July 29th, I believe. Hold on. I actually want to get the right date on this. He took his last breath on July 29th, 1998. Renaissance was released on July 29th, 2022. And as we know, the whole Uncle Johnny made my dress and he did all of that. That's all in dedication to him. Miss Tina actually talks about how he grew up gay at a time when it was like it wasn't as widely accepted to be gay, but he had always been himself and she had always accepted him. She also talks about how she's the one that took him to his first gay club. Like, this book made me realize that honestly, I think I might be a fan of Miss Tina because she's really a real one. Like, to be a lot of people in Miss Tina's demographic age range are very homophobic, or at least they were, and they changed later in life. Miss Tina always been down with the get downs, but I thought that was really special and interesting. And as you know, the album was released on the anniversary of his death. The movie, the Renaissance movie, was released on World AIDS Day, which I think is December 1st. I think early December. It was released on World AIDS Day in his honor because he passed from AIDS. Oh, this standout part. Miss Tina could not leave Matthew alone. Oh my goodness. I was so stressed every time Miss Tina in the book, and I won't tell you how many times this happened because I want you to be as stressed as me when you read it. I was so stressed the amount of time she would be like, he was doing me dirty, so I left him. I took my kids, I packed up, or I took myself, I packed up, I got a new place. Then literally 2 paragraphs later, she would be like, but I took him back. Oh my gosh. Miss Tina, I wanted to say, Miss Tina, stand up, baby. Stand up. You got to leave that man alone. She could not get up off Matthew to save her life, but I have always said I do give grace to women with children. When it comes to a man cheating or doing you dirty, I give them grace because you leaving them affects more than just you. Now, if you ain't got no kids with him, you can get up and go anytime. Like, I'm gonna have a little less grace for you. But if you got kids with a man, it is a little bit harder to be like, let me just walk out, because then you got to think about your kids and all that stuff and raising them in a broken home and this, that, and the third. But there were several times, even from year one of them being together, that she was like, I need to leave this man. And she did not leave him. I don't know. It's like, I feel her in a way because it seems like they had like a connection still, but he just couldn't act right. And Lord knows that's just like a man. For you to be connected to them and feel like this is my person, but he just does not know how to act. I was like, Miss Tina, stand up, please, please. Let the last time be the last time. You don't know how excited I was when I got to the chapter and she's like, we divorced for good. I was like, yes, yes, finally. And I knew she was going to come back and be like, but we were still fooling with each other. But no, she didn't say that. They broke up and they were done. But it took literally, we were going through the saga with them for like the whole little middle to end of the book. Another thing I noticed as a standout point, I put that I need to go to the club more. Miss Tina's always talking about, throughout childhood to even now, she's always talking about how she goes dancing. She meet a man, they go dancing. I need to go dancing. Like, we go to the club and stuff, but I'm gonna start asking people, do you want to go dancing? Because I want it to be clear that when I get there, I want to dance. I want to get down. I want to shake my groove thing. And that's what it made me realize. I'm like, I'm Miss Tina's in her 70s. She probably hitting the club more than me, and I'm 26. So that was another thing. She just had such a zeal for life and going out and all that stuff. And I'm like, I need to be like that. I need that. Oh, and then the last standout point that I actually just finished the book. I finished it yesterday night. So last standout point I have is that she actually, although she gets into her children's lives and stuff, she does skip over a lot of their personal business, which is honestly the right thing to do. But I noticed she skipped right over Lemonade. Like, did not mention the album, did not mention the tour or anything. Or I think the only time she mentioned the album is she mentioned the little part at the end, the speaking part that had Jay-Z's grandmother on it. The part where she's saying she turned lemons into lemonade. But other than that, she has a part for 2016, but in that part, she only talks about Solange's album, A Seat at the Table, which has been getting a lot of replay for me in the last couple weeks. So I am not mad at it. I enjoyed learning more about the making of that album, but I did notice that she skipped over that. She ain't telling that tea. So if you wanted to read the book to find out, Beyonce and Solange's personal business, then that's not what you're gonna get. Okay, those are my standout parts. Now I like plan all my videos like this, so I did put a part called constructive criticism because y'all know I am a member of the Beehive. So I try not to be biased, but naturally I just am. I am a human being, okay? So I did put just some constructive criticism just so I could say I did it and y'all didn't think I was just hyping up this book and not giving any criticism at all. So I dug deep to find some constructive criticism. And what I did put was that I do think that the end was a little bit rushed. Like at one point it was pretty much going year to year to year from 1959, I believe, you know, up. But from the year 2016, I believe it skipped to like 2021 after that. Like it jumped like 5 years in the future. And the chapters in the end were shorter. And maybe there was just not as much to tell there. I mean, her life was pretty interesting in the beginning. So maybe it was just like, I don't need as long chapters at the end. But that is one thing that I would say. A lot of books, I used to have a problem with not finishing books because I just didn't want it to end. I do that with TV series now. Like, it's just something about them ending that I'll just never finish it. But this one was actually easy to finish because as the end came, it was a little more rushed. We were kind of moving through the years a little bit faster. The chapters were a little bit shorter, so on and so forth. So that's my only constructive criticism. I wish we would have got maybe a little bit more, a little bit more info at the end, but I'm totally fine. The beginning of the book was plenty. The beginning and middle of the book were plenty interesting enough for me, and I really enjoyed this book. Like it was a 10 out of 10. And what I was trying to do at first was read a chapter a day. But then as I got into the book, I found myself like not being able to wait to read the next chapter. So I was reading like 2, 3, 4, 5 chapters a day, or like if I knew I had to go to bed, I would like read a little bit into the next chapter just so I can know like what I'm getting into. But I really, really enjoyed this book. Do I recommend it? I absolutely recommend it. I recommend it if you're like a Beyonce and or Solange fan because it does give you a little bit more insight into their upbringing, where they came from, their bloodline, so on and so forth. So I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of them, or Kelly or Angie, because she also claims them as her daughters as well. But if you're not a fan, I still recommend it. I think it's super interesting to see. Like I said, this is a true rags to riches story, like beginning to end. It's super interesting, especially if you're Black. Like there were so many times she made references to music and things, and I went to look it up during the book because it's just interesting. Like it's very detailed. It's very I don't know the word I'm trying to look for, but it's very detailed. It's very, I think the word is comprehensive that I'm looking for. Like it is just a really good book. Like I honestly, I'm not going to lie. I never really watched when she was like going on her press tour for her book. Like a lot of podcasts that I watch actually interviewed her, and I didn't watch it because I was like, I feel like people are gassing it. Like I never read a memoir that was like life-changing, or like super good. They're not gassing it. It's actually on the front. You see it's Oprah's Book Club 2025. They're not gassing it. It really is that good, and it really is super inspiring. So I recommend you read it even if you're not a Beyonce or Solange fan. But if you are, that's even all the more reason to read it. Sit down, read it, get into it, be inspired. Yeah. Like I said, I glazed over a lot of things. I didn't even talk about every interesting part. Like there's so much that is still left in this book that I did not spoil. So yeah. Please let me know if you have any other questions about the book. I can't see how you would though, because you really just need to read it. So I don't like, how much more information could you want from me? You really just got to read it. But let me know if you have any more questions about the book. I definitely think you need to put that on your reading list for this year. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please tell your friends to subscribe. And I will definitely see you guys in the next video. Bye.